Hey guys, welcome back to Beyond Freight. My name is Simba. Today we're going to have Pastor Andrew and our president Andrew from GH Logistics speak on faith and business. Looking forward to it.
Andrew
What's up?
Richardson, tell us about what got you here today. What started you? What had gotten you becoming a pastor?
Man, just woke up and I was there. No, I'm kidding. No, man, so I grew up in the church, right? So I've grown up in the church. I have uncles that are pastors. My mom's the kids ministry director. So I'm like as close as you can get to a pastor's kid without officially being a pastor's kid. So I've grown up in the church, but I was all on fire for basketball. I was the starting varsity manager, right? So, man, I was all about it, man. I was ready to go. I wanted to go into sports marketing, that business world and all that within sports, and I was gonna do it. I was going to UTSA, all this stuff, and then all of a sudden my passions just shifted. They shifted from one thing to another. I'd find myself in the library late at night studying theology questions when I have an exam the next day, and my passions just had shifted. And randomly, my pastor reached out, and we didn't really talk that much. He reached out and he's like, "Hey, have you thought about going to seminary?" And I was like, "Yes, actually." Yeah. And then the rest kind of happened, man. So I officially became a pastor at 2021, and then now it's been several years since then, pursuing all the different calls that God has for me. So it's been really cool, man. And God's been able to use that as I've still kind of been able to do some stuff in the sports world a little bit and make some connections there. God's been able to use my schooling, all the stuff I have, and see both those doors open. So.
That's good, brother. I mean, so you would say like it's a pivotal, like there's a couple pivotal moments, or is it just like?
Yeah, for me, it's like I wish I could say it was God's. Right? Yeah. Like I wish I could say it was God's audible voice, like came down like Moses in the burning bush. But for me, it was like my passion shifted a little bit, and then it was little things that God kind of did. But it's like one of those things where you look back and it's undeniable how God was in the middle of all of it.
Ooh,
you know,
that's true.
It's like when you're in the middle of it, you're like, okay, that's a coincidence, that's whatever. But when you zoom back and you see, man, only God could have done that.
That's good.
From one thing to position me to where I was, for there to be a job open. I started in I'll work with youth, but I also teach regularly on Sunday mornings and all this stuff. So I started first with pre-K age student, and I just went up and up, and God continued to move. So it was just little things one at a time.
That's good, bro. I think that's definitely. You don't see how it builds, like same thing in just lifestyle or kind of where God's putting you until you kind of look back and see kind of everything that He planned. So I think that's pivotal or that's a bit profound, but only in hindsight.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's a testimony of His faithfulness. It's like oftentimes we feel like God is just faithful when the big thing happens. Yeah. But if you zoom out, faithfulness is this consistency. Like He's consistently there. And that's a lot of my journey. Like my journey has been just God continually sustaining me and helping me and doing all that I need. So. Yeah.
And so I kind of wanted to highlight this too, because every time I look at you, I always see the same thing. The Andrew thing is big for me because whenever I came to City Church for the first time, came in absolutely just like I need something, I need some type of word. I am feeling vulnerable. I'm feeling a little broken, or really broken actually. And then I'm like, God, just please talk to me, And I always think about, oh man, He's gonna call you by name. And then the first thing, Pastor Andrew comes in, it's like, what? I don't know. Do you commonly preach? Is it often?
It's getting more. Within the last several months, it's been more often.
So then they were like, oh yeah, Pastor Andrew's gonna come out and preach to us. Like the first time I'm there, I'm like, okay, all right, God, God's trying to tell me something. So let me lock in. And then the first thing he comes in, just feeling. You said you were feeling really nauseous and stuff before, so you were like, hey, I'm gonna just ask if anybody just wants to raise their hand for healing. And I was like, both my hands were up. I was ready, that was what it was for, man. It was a beautiful sight, and just being able to. A lot of this kind of reminded me, and I'll get into the business stuff later too. But it made me not skeptical, not a cynic. I'm a really big cynic. I'm a really big person who focuses on, well, that's coincidence. Well, this only happened because I prepared it in such a way, right? Or I'm so happy that God made me so cool to handle this so that I could, and be successful. But now it's everything in a Christian's life is spiritual. So, all the signs you see, it's like, okay, you can point this towards him. It'll actually make sense in alignment, because, I think that, you unintentionally played a pivotal part just because we had the same name. That's cool. And on top of that, like, we just kind of hit it off and kind of go from there. It's beautiful and at the same time, very profound. So, but yeah, man, the reason I also brought you in here today is kind of what Beyond Freight is in general. Is initially I try to give the business owners like some type of area where they can all resonate with each other, because like our business owners can't resonate with their employees as much because they have that relationship, that payment relationship. There's almost a yes man mentality at times, or there's sometimes disrespect, whatever. They can't relate to people who make more money than them or their competitors. So who can they turn to for actual information that's relevant to them? And so I'm not talking from sometimes I'll say it from a freight or a real estate or whatever perspective from success, but also just from a mindset. Like, I think the biggest thing that you have to have is the evergreen skills, or the most effective skills that you will have are the evergreen ones. Your communication, where you get your resilience from, how motivated are you, how do you continue to bounce back. And I think that I highlight most of my skill set. All of them were basically rooted in my previous skills, so I'm trying to highlight something that's not rooted just in me, but to others, so that they can remind themselves once again. Like, we almost treat it as motivation, but motivation is like brushing your teeth. But at the same time, as business owners, we need it every day. Like nobody's telling us to get up, nobody's telling us to do anything, and I get comments and stuff all the time of people just saying like, hey, we want to, I want to know more of how you got to this point, and I'm like, I wouldn't wish this business on the worst enemy. So, there's so much, stuff that happens, So I think I just kind of want to get your take on anchoring faith in business. Because that's one thing that's relatively new to me, and I think I really want your take. That's more than one of the main reasons. And I brought you on. I was thinking about it, and then I was telling Simba about this recently. Whenever I first was gonna say, hey, I'm gonna actually text Pastor Andrew to maybe come and do a podcast, and I was like, nah, maybe not. And then my sister texts me a picture of a Coke that says Andrew on it, the same exact time. So I was like, all right, bet, we gotta do it. So dude, I don't know what's happening. God's doing some crazy stuff for me, and it's knocking me every way but loose. So I think some good questions. What is Christ? What do you think? How would you encourage business owners who are trying to just make it and be really successful? A common thing that we do as business owners is that we just lock in, and we're just very, very desensitized to a lot of relationships. We're desensitized to a lot of different things because we want to make money. We're ambitious, and nobody understands that we feel like nobody understands the fact that I have to miss this because nobody's going to take care of my business like me. I have to miss this because nobody's going to, or I can't be here because of this. Just the common thing that I would get from my, from Christian friends, and also just from people who are just living daily life, is finding a balance and finding all this. And I would hate that answer because personally, it's like I can't do it whenever I have 6 trucks worth of payments. I can't do it whenever I have all these obligations that I put on myself, right? But how would you go about it, from trying to encourage somebody and trying to just, not also kind of meet them where they're at?
Well, that's a good question. But first, I want to go back to how you said you wouldn't wish this on anyone. You were saying to me, it's funny, it's not the same, but it's similar. When I told my dad I felt called to be a pastor, he was like, oh, awesome. Do you feel called to anything else? And I was like, well, that's encouraging, right? But there's something, and it'll tie into this question, that there's something when you're called to it, it's what's inside of you that drives where you're going. So if it's in ministry, if it's in business, the way I always say is if God calls you to, he's going to see you through. So if God has called you to something, you can stand on that word, that he's going to see you through. Like, he's not just going to part the seas, he's going to walk with you through it. So as far as that, that's what I've been reminded of, is that he's with me, he's consistently with me. But how I would answer your question is just and I get it, the balance is okay, well, what does that mean? But I would answer it in the terms of their seasons. So you have to recognize that there's seasons. There might be a season of just crazy busy, and there might be a season where things are chill for a little bit and then busy again. It's recognizing that there's seasons. So if there are seasons where you're not sleeping much, it's recognizing, okay, maybe that is okay, because I do have to get this business to where it needs to be, but you can't just live in that your whole life. Like, you have to navigate it. Maybe it's a season where you have a lot of employees and a season where you don't have a lot of employees. Like, we've been in seasons at the church where we had many people there, so we could do things differently. We could do different projects, different things that God's called us to, because we had the capacity for it. But then, and here's the thing, the mission never changes. Just what you're doing and maybe the capacity of what you can do changes. So it's focusing on what is your mission, what are you called to do. And another thing I would say is, if you were clear on what you're called to do, there's going to be just different seasons for it. So that's what I would say to that is, yes, find balance, but also recognize, like, hey, everything's going to look different. And then just give yourself grace. Like I think that's the hardest thing. It's because you have these goals, you have these vision and all this thing, and execute it. Do all you can. Have the little goals to get to the big goal, whatever it is. Big rocks, little rocks. I mean, we all know things like this, but it's just like, give yourself grace and understanding that if you have been called to this, like, He's gonna see you through.
Answer this question though, Andrew. Is work biblical? Like, I'm talking like crazy work, like just working a lot. Like, what do you say?
Well, work is for sure biblical, but like, here's the thing: is making work your idol biblical? The answer to that is no. So if work becomes your idol, meaning it's what you put on a throne, is it okay? Maybe for a season, but what happens is if that is the only thing that is driving you, then what happens if it fails? And of course, we're hoping that everyone listening to this, like, their business thrives, right? But there's something when you can say, you know what, my purpose in life isn't necessarily this business. This business is the way that I'm using my purpose. Type of thing. So is, like, working yourself to death biblical? No, working is, but I think you can do it in a way, you can work hard in a way, because I do also know there's Christians that are just like, hey, you don't have to work that much. God's going to take care of it. Like, I'm like, no, you do need to, like, you do need to grind. Like, you do need to, like, you do need to get into it. Like, there are going to be times where you're staying up all night working, right? And I think God does honor that. So I think there definitely is the understanding of that.
I think that's a common misconception that kind of pushed me into defense mode a lot. Whenever that happened, as I was going up in my walk, and like so many people would be like, man, you're always working. I was like, man, I was working for 10 years straight. Like, the first 5 years I didn't have anything but like, I didn't even leave my house. Like, so, because I was just in my spaceship. I had my gym, I had my meal preps. I did not leave. I was living the COVID life for 2 years before COVID even started, because I was just dispatching and I was risk managing, all that stuff. And so, like, when somebody comes to tell me that, I'm like, you just don't know the struggle. You don't know the struggle. And I think what the common misconception that I wish I was open to was the fact that they're not trying to judge me for the fact that I'm working a lot. They're just trying to say, I care about you enough to say, like, hey, I want, like, there's a different way. And I wish, I just recently learned that. Like, I just recently learned, hey, there's a different way. What if you could, the example that I had was, what if, or if you were going to challenge a guy who was about 10 years your senior, or he was maybe about 15 years older than you, and you're a lumberjack, and you've been doing lumberjacking for the past 6 years. You're getting strong, etc. You challenge that veteran, and then you say, I want you guys to cut as many trees. We're going to have that tree challenge where whoever cuts the more trees will win. And you go through that, and then by the time you hit the end, he actually cuts 40% more trees than you. How do you think he did it?
He knows what he's doing.
He just knows what he's doing? That's true. Most of the guys here, most of my hard workers who I actually traumatized into a fear-based mentality is like, they're like, oh yeah, I'm just going to pace myself with him. Or, oh, I'm just going to chop twice as hard, and every time I see him rest, I'm going to start working again. Like, instead, what had happened was, he basically just sharpened his axe and he rested too. So while he was resting, he was sharpening his axe and he was sitting down. So most of my guys are still just using the dullest axe. They're just chopping. That's a common misconception. I'd rather have 8-9 hours of deep work instead of 18 hours. Obviously, I didn't know that. But at the same time, there are some businesses, especially in logistics, where you got to be on all the time. That's different. But I will say, when you start to segment it as a business owner into blocks, and my intentionality is I'm not going to be binge watching stuff on my phone. I'm not going to be doing all this stuff. I would vilify that. My escape my escape away from me like feeling feelings is discipline at work. So in general, it's the same thing. Binge watching Netflix can be the same thing as distracting yourself with work. So at the same time, what I did was I magnified the amount of work that I would do, and I would push to always be working because I knew that would get me somewhere. But instead, and that would help me minimize any of the discipline issues that I would have, like going and watching Netflix for binge watching, all this stuff. There's a difference. I mean, like doing it in moderation, everything in moderation is fine. But for me, it was always all or nothing. Like, I don't know, common things that I hear from business owners is there's like, if I hate going on vacation because I hate having to come back and just starting from zero, or I hate going to like a family thing and just disrupting my routine. There's so many things that come about with that because we have to operate at a different wavelength than a person who works regularly as a 9 to 5. So, I think for us, the encouragement that I'm trying to relay is that there is, like, once we sign our name on the dotted line for that company, or once we made that company, we officially said we set off on a ship that's basically like, this ship is going to guaranteed have stormy waters, and these stormy waters are going to be consistent. And so now you have to be able to get used to being out of a storm, or just getting into a storm, or you're inside a storm. That's just always how it is. And that's kind of, it almost desensitizes you at a certain point, because you're like, I literally can't get out. I can't just quit. You can, but you can go bankrupt, and most of these guys aren't going to do that.
So, and your whole life is wrapped up in it.
So I think giving context is something I never could do to someone like a pastor, to kind of relay how important it is, because that would also be my excuse for not going and being involved in community and being like, I would isolate. So I just want to see how you would go about navigating that situation, if you could.
Well, I would 100% say, like, excellence in all we do is important. So, like, I do know that there's some Christians that go, I know God's got this, so I don't have to put my best into it. And it's like, no, here's my conviction. My conviction is that Christians should be the best workers. We should be the most creative. We should be having the most successful businesses, because we have our foundation on something solid. So excellence is important. Like, I'm the first type of person that's going to be like, no, like, if you need to stay up late to perfect this message, like, there's times I stay up super late because I want to get this wording right on one sentence. Do I want to say it like that? Like, I do. I want to be very careful. And I've been lucky enough to grow up in a church and an atmosphere where we take what we do serious. We have lots of meetings. We make sure we work through the flow of how things functions. We make sure we have systems and processes. But the big thing is being effective with your time. So, like, for me personally, and you kind of already hit on it, but me personally, I know I'm the most effective with writing messages or whatever the big thing I have to do right in the morning. So I get up, get my coffee, ready to go, and that's like my time where I know I can get the most out of that time. I could utilize that time, or I could spend one day where I just use the afternoon and I don't feel like I'm as effective. So it's knowing yourself, knowing what you can do to execute, and seeking that excellence.
That's good.
Because I think that's super important, and the world needs people. And I think it's so cool how similar it is, like, being in the business world and being in the pastoral ministry. There's so many things that are similar, because, like, I'm on 24/7. Like, if someone calls me and goes, "Hey, my mom's in the hospital," I can't go, "Okay, my office hours are 9 to 5." Right? Like that. Like, that'd be messed up. But there also are boundaries, because people can take advantage. It can be 7 o'clock, and I've had situations where I'm eating dinner with my wife, and I get a text, and I go, "That can wait." That can wait. So it's the prioritizing, but knowing why, like, where is my heart? My heart is to serve people, and my heart is to care for my soul. And in my situation, being married, my wife's soul as well too. And that's the big thing, is when you're focused on people, you're focused on what your product is bringing, it changes a whole new perspective. Because it's not just the money and everything, which is important. It's, why am I doing this? I'm doing this for a purpose, to sell something to whatever, so that it can better.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that whenever I think about trucking logistics for us, it's always been relationship based.
Yes.
And the one thing that they always ask about is, can we automate everything in trucking? My answer is always, you can't automate relationships.
Yeah.
So on top of that, it's very intriguing that you bring that point up, because if you're developing relationships, just like in developing in community, there's also a specific tie to developing relationships in business as well,
For sure.
that are going to withstand the test of time and withstand the test of economical shifts as well. And so there are a lot of similarities, as I think about it. Whenever you think about trying to bring God into the center of what you're doing. So what I want to do, and one of the big reasons why I wanted us to talk, is how to put it together. So my question, and it puts it perfectly, is what encouragement would you give a business owner who feels alone when he's trying to bring faith into their work? Because that happens a lot. I will say that happened to my director of operations, Derek. He was like, man, I want to bring prayer. I was like, man, like, we're not going to have time. Like, it's okay. And now he prays. He does the 9:30 a.m. prayer every day, because I'm, like, convicted. So
No, that's a really good question. I would say this: throw your expectations out the window and be obedient to what God has in the moment. Because a lot of times we might be like, I have this big plan for a Bible study that I want to do, or I have this big plan for whatever I want to do. And part of being, Scripture talk about being the light in the world, the salt and the light in the world. And part of doing that is recognizing the situation you're in and where they're at. So if you look around your business and realize, hey, there's a lot of people here that need something, let's throw in prayer, whatever. But if you realize, hey, no one here is really about it, let's slowly start to implement some things. And here's what I love about, this gets me excited, right? Here's what I love about Christianity. Following Jesus, the practical things that Jesus teaches actually makes your life better. Well, it's crazy, right? Like literally, like treating others the way you want to be treated. That sounds like a good idea, right? Like so you could, if you're someone who's in that world who wants to start implementing faith into the workplace, start implementing these practices. Right? These practices of just caring for people. Or just maybe it's where you're like, hey, at the end of the day, or beginning of the workday, like, we're just going to get together and check on how everyone's doing. Like, start implementing practices, and slowly over time, people are going to be like, what is this? And it's how, and this is the big thing about Christianity that a lot of people don't get, is it's not just about knowledge, it's about practical living out your life. The book of James says, faith without works is dead. And what it's actually saying, a lot of people think it refers to your salvation or not, but what it refers to is, how are you living your life? Are you letting your actions speak, right? So if you're a business owner, it's no different than me being a pastor. Like, whatever I'm doing, whatever conversation I'm having, it comes out. Like, whatever you're excited about comes out. So I would say the biggest thing is have a plan, have a goal, have all these things. But a lot of times it just starts small and it continues to grow. For sure. So it might not always be what you think it's going to be. But God can use, it talks about the size of a mustard seed. So He can use whatever you bring to Him. But it's understanding. The way I put it is, it's like a lot of people say, put God first, put God first. That's great, but there are seasons where you don't feel like you're putting God first. So what I heard is put God in the middle. Because when you put God in the middle of what you're doing, you might wake up one day and not pray first or read your Bible first. That's okay, because He's in the middle of what you do. Maybe it's a quick conversation in your car. Maybe it's a conversation you have with a coworker or an employee. So hopefully that gives some language.
It's a great segue, because the way that I've changed, and we're having to evolve. Like James Logistics, we've been blessed. We've been consistently growing. It's been awesome. We're starting some other growth phases in throughout Texas, and then we're going to start in different states too, going into a regional logistics supply chain. But my biggest thing was that I can't micromanage 15 people anymore. So my thing, like my way of business is, I'm going to rule based off of the fear of failure and make sure that you understand that if you're wrong, I will let you go. And all the times, like, kind of creating that militant mindset was that was how I learned. So at the same time, fear breeds fear. And so for me, what I realize now is, there's another way. There's another way of trying to enact stewardship, trying to enact clarity, and trying to enact ownership in the people that work for you. So for the business owner side, it's amazing that you put that into perspective, because also what I realize is, if I can add in the human component to somebody, if I can realize, hey, not only are you my worker and you perform very well, but you're also a human, and then you have these things and you're caring about them, even if they're not religious, right? If you're caring about them from a religious standpoint, let me start to understand them a little bit more. For example, I had one of my main executive administrators who, she's my senior executive administrator, and I was asking her, you know what, how do you do it? I just asked her, how do you do it? And she's like, what are you talking about, sir? Like, she's a hard worker. She, definitely dumbfounded at the question because I never would ask her much. I would just give her 5 tasks and tell her to get out of my office. And so at this point, I was like, how do you do it? You have a family, you have kids, you're also trying to, come in and work. You do a very good job here. How do you do it? And she's just, kind of exhaling for a second. And then something I never experienced happened where, that she exhales and then she's also thinking, well, it's, I just want to make a big impact. I want to do a lot of this stuff. I want to, I want to be a lawyer. I want to do some other stuff in law. So I was like, okay, well, what if we get to a point where your goal now is to help me and develop a college learning plan so that you can be the first person to do it, where you're also taking classes while you're doing this. And so not only do I have her ambitions and I'm taking care of her family by paying her, that's usually as far as business owners go. We're always like, hey, I paid for your stuff, so you got to listen to me. I know all about that part. But what if you had their hearts in it too?
Yeah. Right?
So it's like, what if you understood where their mindsets are at to the point where I have their heart in it and I'm actually taking the time to understand them to where I can say, hey, if your heart is in it, if your ambitions align, if we have that, success implanted and you have a yellow brick road to be successful, odds are you're probably going to do better for me without me being there than you would if I was just paying you. And that's something that was just so beautiful recently, because now I'm making this whole different system that's focused on let's build structure and clarity and let's make sure that everybody understands everything. And it's because the previous system is always, hey, if I ask you to do something, yes, okay, do it. If I ask you to do something, no, okay, you're complacent and lazy. That was how we did it. Now, the difference is if I ask you to do it and you say no, I'm going to ask why. Hey, is it clarity issue? Is it a complacency issue? Capacity issue? And I think that's what's going to allow us to grow. And so for business owners, we have to evolve too. And I think that's big.
And what you're doing is you're talking about culture. It's like creating a culture where people feel like they can bring something to you. It's not like a fear-based culture, but it's a culture where they can come together. And that's something we talk about too at church. Is like we want to create a culture. And here's the thing, like you can, as business owners, you probably know, you can get paid really well, but not like the culture, and you're out. Right? So it's like there's only so much that it can do. But creating a culture where people truly feel cared, listened, and valued is going to do so much. Because now that conversation you've had with her, she knows that you actually care. So if something comes up, like she can talk to you about it. Or at least, and here's the thing, because especially the business owners that have hundreds and thousands of employees, you're not going to be able to do that for every person. So making sure that people on your executive team, people on your team that do have those conversations, or showing that culture. It's the same in sports. Like the sports teams that do well to have that culture that they're for each other. And then you hear about teams that don't, and it's the opposite.
So I think that's the biggest kind of turnaround that I got, because I'm trying to be, we're all trying to be more like Christ. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to instill that in my leaders. I'm trying to push it forward. I'm trying to make sure that people know if we're a Christian-based organization, because it's important for me. And if we're going to be successful or if we're going to be unsuccessful, it's not going to be because of totally of our own doing. It's going to be because that's where, we've been led.
I understand we have to hit this by the end of the day, but let's just go grab food really quick. Right? Something like that. So having that community, having that people is important. So when you get to the part of like, I feel exhausted, I feel done, you have someone to lean on.
100%.
And to not give up. Like, I'm in the middle, like the word, and you mentioned it earlier, but the word right now that's really big on my heart is resilience. Like, you just have to be resilient. And resilience in the context of faith is focused on Jesus, that there's hope in him. So you can be resilient. Hey, the business doesn't look like it's gonna make it. I can keep pushing. Hey, the business is doing really good. I can keep pushing. Right? And not to become complacent and to continue to be resilient. Because, man, if we have a world where people in business are seeking that, man, that's so awesome.
That's right. Because then, then you're kind of, I like to say, for me, especially whenever I was just asking, like, I just don't know what to do, God. Like, I just don't know what to do. It was always like, all right, I'm going to go find the answer. I'm going to go find the answer. I'm going to go lean on my own strength. I'm going to go lean on my own strength. And I was pretty damn good at it.
It gets you so far,
It gets you so far. I was getting in through 10 years, but at the same time, it's just an encouragement of saying that there is another way. There's a fountain of strength that you can pull through in the Holy Spirit that you have already, just kind of waiting for you to tap into. It's just you're having to do that through silence, meditation. In a world of busyness, in a culture of busyness and trying to step over each other, that kind of segues it into my next question. How do you keep that integrity in a world that is in a competitive world, for sure, of noise and capitalistic mindsets and greed, so on and so forth? So what's your explanation there, if you got one?
No, that's good, and that's something I've been wrestling with too, as someone who continues to want to get opportunities and move up and always do that stuff. And it's the idea of, and again, it goes back, I might sound repetitive, but it goes back to what is your focus? If your focus is just to get to that next point, then when you get there, okay, what is your focus?
It's always
now?
The next one.
It's
the
always
next Mount Everest.
It's always the next one. So I would say in a society, in a culture where it's all about that, you can navigate that world but still keep your faith at the center, because and again, I said it earlier, but it is important not to just be the people that are just like, all right, I'm a follower of Jesus, God's going to take care of me, I can go do whatever I want. And it's just like, no, like you need to put in that work. Like there's the parable of the talents. In the parable of the talents, like God gave someone a certain amount and they did something with it, and then one person just hid it and it came back and was like, look what I did, I didn't lose any of your money. And it's just like, but you didn't do anything with it. So it's just like, what are you doing with what you have right now? And I would always say like pause at the end of the night when you're about to go to bed. Pause and be like, can I be happy with how I live my life today? You know, because if you get to the point where you're about to go to sleep and close your eyes and you're like, I cannot live with myself, you got to reevaluate where you're at. Right. And there's going to be meetings, there's going to be things where you're like, I should have said this, I should have done this, I should have taken this opportunity, I didn't. But if it gets to the point where you don't feel like you are yourself anymore, then you're not truly going to be able to live out the potential and the purpose of what your business and what you can do. Because you're going to find yourself in a cycle of something of dysfunction that you didn't even want to get in, just because it's one thing after another. And you hear about the celebrities, you hear about all those that do really, really good, and they get to the point of like, I can't even live with myself because I don't even know what I'm seeking anymore. So I think you can, and I know you can be very successful in business and life, and also not even know who you are anymore.
I 100%. I think it reminds me of a saying that the price is very cheap if the promise is clear. So it's like if you're able to focus on, kind of sit down for a second and realize, what am I doing this for? Am I doing this to, because I want to really take care of my family. I'm doing this because if you're doing it because you want the nice yacht, I'm telling you that changes very quick. Because I was me. I wanted 1920. I was like, I want a yacht in Florida and I want to party and stuff. And obviously stuff changes to eventually people are starting to depend on you, and then that dependence becomes sort of your meaning. Because and in general, that was another trap that I had, where in general I had this huge cape of responsibility, and I'm like, well, I can't stop now because all these people are looking at me, and then of course I'm getting gratification from helping others, which is technically it's like a synthetic version of community and intimacy that we're trying to have. But now I realize that you can do that, you can be that, as long as you continuously reevaluate in the silence. I think that's really something that meshes well with what we're both trying to say. And that's something I never did, because like the world just gets busy, man. I mean, most of the logistics guys, they have WhatsApps and their Google team groups, and they get calls at 2 a.m. and all this stuff. It's almost impossible. And on top of that, you got to take care of your family. You have it sucks whenever you're kind of annoyed at the fact that your wife is trying to bring you to a dinner that's pretty important for her dad, and you just are like, oh, this is another thing I got to do. And a lot of guys can resonate with that. And I'm not saying that I'm saying that was us in the past. And so now just kind of realizing where our values are at, and then reevaluating, and it comes to kind of then just seeking the answers in the Word. Because I will say that when I seek the answers in the world, it actually creates more of a gratifying, like, hey, like I have this gratitude for what I'm doing, this gratitude for where I'm at, and then it gives me more strength to keep going. And so, man, I think there's a lot of, I would say, extremely deep points that we can get into whenever you mesh them both together. But I think the bottom line of what I wanted to encourage today is that like hard work in business and having seasons where you don't have balances can also be biblical, because God has a plan for the business owners, just like He has a plan for the missionaries, you know?
Yes.
And that's one thing that I really had trouble with whenever I was growing up, because I wanted to be a missionary, and then I got plucked out of all that, and I didn't go to the, you know, I was going to go to Baylor, I ended up not going, and whenever I came here and started the companies and stuff, that was just, it almost felt like a lot of imposter syndrome, especially because I was just so young. And so now at this point, in hindsight, obviously, I see the purpose of it, and I see where I'm at, and I'm trying to live by that and glorify that every day. But I guess the main point being that we're all trying to find that purpose, and we're all trying to ensure that our purpose is gratifying and not satisfying, because I learned the difference recently where satisfaction is just kind of temporary, and then eventually you get satisfied all over again, and gratification can come, and it's like the sauce versus the juice thing, you know, sauce lasts forever in the fridge, juice only lasts for a little bit. You know, I think that's very important in realizing where you're at, what's important, what gratifies you in your life, and then what only satisfies you. So, yeah, man, I just want to see, as we're kind of wrapping up, you know, in general, any last comments in general? Again, I appreciate you being here. But, yeah, man, just overall, from what I was saying, kind of what you'd want to say to business owners, how you'd encourage business owners who are still trying to have a lot of trouble with just seeking Christ. I mean, like, it's like seeking, like, whenever I was like not able to pay my bills, or whenever I was just struggling, I had a bunch of problems. All of my problems stacked up like a mountain over here, and what I was trying to do is get over that mountain, and then whenever I'm over the mountain, I would basically, and that next summit, I'd want to then say, okay, now I can worship the Lord. Now I can glorify, I can connect with people. And so I'd only be here for maybe 1 or 2 minutes in comparison, because then the next Mount Everest would come about, and then you'd go, it would happen all over again. So I just wanted to see, guys who are religious, maybe guys who aren't religious as well, how would you encourage them from a small business standpoint or a larger business standpoint as they try and grow in their lives?
Yeah, I would say this: God cares about you more than your work. Right? So now that doesn't mean don't put energy and effort in work. Obviously, this whole conversation we talked about that's important. But when you're able to pause and recognize, man, God actually cares about me. Yeah. And there's this phrase that I've been thinking about a lot. It's like, God chose me. Yeah. Like, God chose me. Like, God chose you for this business. Like, God chose me for where I am right now. And when you're able to walk in that and understand that this didn't just happen. Yeah. Like, God chose me. Then it gives you that pep in your step. It gives you that ability to sit up straight and be like, man, there's something special here. It gives you that ability to go to your coworker or to go to your employee, your hundreds, thousands of employees, and say, hey, like, you're here for a reason too. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And the thought that keeps coming through my head for business owners is this, and because I keep thinking about how you treat people is super important. So my thought is do you care, if your employee didn't get the work done for the day because something bad happened in their life, do you care about that? Right? That's like, do you care for that person? Yeah. Let's put it this way. If your employee quit, would you check up on them and see how they're doing?
I don't think I've ever done that, but that's
probably not. I probably wouldn't either. Dang. But what I mean is if it's someone that's worked for you, you develop a relationship with them. As soon as they're gone, you don't care about them.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Of course, there's so much to it. Stuff happens, all that. It's not a black and white thing, but it's the heart of that more is, do you care about that person?
That's true
too. Not just what they're producing, because when people know that you care about them, they're gonna just produce more.
Yeah,
like absolutely. I've worked for people that just care about what I can produce, and I do better when I'm working for someone that cares more about me.
That's good.
And that helps create culture. But ultimately, it starts if you as the business owner do not feel like God chose you, cares for you, then it's going to be very hard for you to relay that, because scriptures say that we're image bearers of Him. Right? So if we're image bearers of Him, then what He says about us, we can reflect that and be that person and that leader to other people.
Dang, man.
So walk around with that confidence. Like, imagine the impact if we had hundreds and thousands of millions of business owners that said, hey, I'm going to strive for excellence but I'm going to exalt God while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
He can use that like crazy.
Yeah. And it doesn't betray what we do either.
No, not at all.
It doesn't betray. It just is a more complicated way of thinking.
And I will say this too. This is going to be very profound. You ready?
Yeah.
Don't be a jerk about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I love Jesus. I'm going to school for all that. I'm almost got my master's degree, all that stuff, right? But what irritates me the most is when there are people that feel like they have to force everything upon someone else, right? Like you can. That's why I keep going back to his practical teachings. You can share that to an unbeliever, to an atheist, and they don't have to believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
So what I wouldn't like is if all of a sudden they're like, this is what we're doing. Anyone who doesn't believe it, you're out. We hate you. Like, bro, like let's chill a little bit and let's recognize
mandatory prayer, 9:30, mandatory. You have to
mandatory. If not, you're going to hell, right?
Yeah.
Like that'd be messed up, right?
Yeah.
So it's a balance. It's just when you're able to recognize who you are. And just give yourself grace. Like there's going to be seasons where you can really share your faith, and seasons where no, like we just got to lock in.
Yeah.
You have to really do this. Anyways, but it all stems from if you know what God says about you, and you can share that love to others.
Dude,
that's important.
that's good. Drew, thanks for coming, man. Thanks for being a part of my walk. Thanks for
man.
Just kind of showing encouragement. Hopefully, when you can have you back on.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching Beyond Freight. As we continue, hopefully you'll start to see different perspectives. And just trying to stay holistically successful is another piece of the puzzle. I think that there's a lot of different vitality. Spiritual vitality is the key to success, just the same as physical vitality, to make sure you're not getting fog brain. So hopefully if you're able to get something out of this, like, comment, or whatever, just say that, this is something that you guys would want to see, and we can continue to bring people on and then talk more about different perspectives on what business ownership is. And then also the small nuances of what business what business involves, because this is a small nuance that we do not take into account very often. So we'll see you on the next one, and thanks for watching.